take this occasion to tell you a little bit about this very eminent doctor, Dr. Tenzin Chodak. Dr. Chodak was born in 1922 in Lhasa, and at the age of 10 he went to the Chode monastery, where he began to study Buddhism as a monk. He went on to study medicine and the unique therapeutic practice of Tibetan medicine, and later became a Tibetan physician. And due to his outstanding qualification and achievements, he was appointed as the chief physician to His Holiness in 1955, which is just a year before His Holiness came to India in 1956. In 1959, and we know the events of 1959 very well, he couldn't escape to India, so he was taken prisoner, and he remained in the Juzan prison till 62 for 3 years. He was then sent to Drapchi and Utritu, which were very notorious prisons in Tibet, very infamous for the terrible living conditions, where he remained till 1972 for almost 10 years. A year after 1972, he was transferred to a less restrictive branch of the Sangye prison in Lhasa. A Chinese physician who was aware of Dr. Chodak's medical expertise consulted him for a personal ailment. Dr. Chodak treated the physician, who recovered. As a result of this last 4 years of his prison sentence, he was removed from the cell and he was permitted to work in the Sangye hospital. And I'm also told, and I'm straying away from the text, that while he was severely tortured because he had been very, very close to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And while he was undergoing torture, he would be telling his guards, "You have a problem with your liver. You have a problem with, with your digestion." And they said, "How do you know?" And he said, "It's my business, I'm a doctor." And then he would tell them that, "Look, I don't have my complement of medicines, but if you get me just these herbs, I'll be able to." And he was healing his torturers, who were amazed. So that is why for the last 4 years he was permitted to work in the Sangye hospital. He was finally released in 1980. During these 21 years, his survival was endangered daily. And I was just reminded of His Holiness having mentioned this in some of his talks, that after Dr. Chodak came to India, he met with His Holiness, and at one point of time he said to His Holiness that at one point of time I perceived great danger. So His Holiness said, "To your life? You perceive danger to your life?" He said, "No, I perceived danger that I would lose my bodhicitta, my compassion for the Chinese." And His Holiness looked at him carefully and he said, "And did you?" He said, "I just managed to retain my compassion." So this is an extraordinary man, as we can see. 21 years of torture, 21 years of prison, and he never lost compassion for the Chinese. A month later, he left Tibet, was reunited with his own community in India, and reinstated as the chief physician to His Holiness. And as the head of the pharmacy department at the Mensi Khang in Dharamsala, Dr. Chodak dedicated his life towards betterment of the institute. He would look after the teaching of the medical students, the treatment of patients, and would represent the institution at seminars in India abroad. He worked on several books, the formation of the human body by the 5 elements, the nervous system, in his own biography. The Tibetan medical system, as we know, is a very interesting. It's essentially based upon the medicinal tantras, the 4 tantras which were taught by the Buddha. And Dr. Tashi Sering Puri was just telling me that in the 8th century, there was a large conference in Tibet where doctors were invited from India, from China, from Mongolia, from Nepal, and perhaps and Persia. Yes. So, though it is essentially based upon the medicinal tantras, it incorporates elements of the Unani, of the Ayurveda, and certain other systems. So now, without further ado, may I call upon Mr. Tashi Sering Puri, who is the director of the Mensi Khang at Dharamsala. Dr. Tashi Sering Puri, I'm sorry, was the managing trustee of His Holiness the Dalai Lama Charitable Trust, From 94, he was the director of the Mensikang, the Tibet Medical and Ancestral Institute of His Holiness. He then went in 98 to the United States, where he was directing the Tibet Center at Chicago and organizing events pertaining to Tibetan medicine. He returned back in February 2011 and has once again directing the Mensikang at Dharamsala. May I request Dr. Takshi Sering Puri, the director of Mensikang, to welcome all of you and give his introduction.
I'm very pleased to welcome all of you, especially Kapila ji, who many of the Tibetan organizations, especially those involved in arts and culture and education, and of course His Holiness Dalai Lama, only know her since many years, and a great support of Tibet. So we are very thankful to her. First of all, I am not a doctor. I do not know. Celebrate 100 years of founding Mensikang. Mensikang was founded by His Holiness the 13th Dalai Lama in 1916. And then, as you know, what happened to Tibet. So in 1961, His Holiness the present Dalai Lama re-established the Mensikang in Dharamsala in India, and today there are about 56 branch clinics all over India. And in 1961 itself, His Holiness was just 26 years old, just came into exile. Hundreds and thousands of refugees following him with so much of problem, resettling, education. Even then, he was able to establish many of the cultural centers. And when he found the Mensikang, he said, right now Mensikang has a lot of problem in terms of finance and manpower. Some 30-40 years later, Tibetan medicine will speak for itself. So that in 1961, it's remarkable considering that even India recognizing the benefits of its own traditional system of medicine, Indian system, only in the mid-70s, His Holiness recognized the opportunities for such healing system even in the 60s. So Mensikang, not just sort of contented with many clinics or a consumer-driven sort of demand, but we also need now to reach out to more scientists and more universities. And our 2016 world tours, now the pre-events like the lecture tonight are very important. And tonight we have Dr. Jayant Dorma. She was born in 1973 in Bhutan, born to Tibetan refugee parents. And then after finishing her high school in Tibetan Children's Village, then she graduated from Mensikang. At that time it was 5 plus 1 year. Now it is 6 plus 1 year. So after graduation from Mensikang, then she worked in various clinics. So she has a lot of clinical experiences. And then briefly she worked in the art documentation and publication department. And now she is the head of our research department. So you have come to hear her and Dr. Kapila ji, so I'll not take more time. I'll ask Dr. Dorma to take.
Good evening, everyone, and I will welcome you all in this very special event of Mensikang, the Tibetan Medical Institution and Astro Institution, in the memory of late Dr. Tenzin Chodak. Today's event, I have chosen this specific topic, the Tibetan medical approach to mental health, to contribute a bit in this subject, the mental health. since today, globally in 10th October, it is observed as the Mental Health Day. So maybe everybody knows about this special day. Generally speaking, this globally, the WHO observing this mental health day, not because that we are so happy about this disease, or not because that we are welcoming or celebrating something like event, but with the objective or with the aim to promote or to awareness about this mental health, how to control and how to cope with this problem, this existing problem. I think in a decade ago or 2 decades, when we are in school, we have a concept, or we have used to say there's the mental problem or the mental illness or the mental psychological problems. Sometimes it's usually, we used to say that it's a Western countries disease or something like. It's not out of the Asian or the Eastern countries problem. But especially in India and Tibetan community, we are out of this problem because the early days. But now in these days, it's no more the disease of the Western countries, it's the disease of the global problem. All the health professionals or the doctors or especially the victims, they are very much looking for remedies to take care of, to find the measurement for this, remedial measure for this problem. And it is also always that the traditional medicine, including the Tibetan medicine, can contribute a lot in this managing this mental problem or mental condition. So before I jump up to my actual topic, I think many of you maybe heard about the Tibetan medicine, or maybe somebody who also know about what is Tibetan medicine really is, the concept of medicine. But maybe there are few persons who heard about Tibetan medicine and don't know what the concept it is. So I just would like to highlight a little bit about what is Tibetan medicine, and then I will jump up to the actual topic. Generally, as the introduction is given already, the Tibetan medicine is an ancient healing system. It has a history of more than 3,000 years, we can say, like Ayurveda medicines. Many of you are aware of Ayurveda. Similarly, Tibetan medicines also has a very strong background history. And the basis of the Tibetan medicine, it is based on the ancient civilization itself. When we are in this, it is used to say that when we born in this universe, suffering is a part of our life, and you will know, nobody you will find who have never suffered in their life. The suffering may be, intensity of suffering may be varied, but always everybody has to go through some kind of suffering. So in ancient time, the men started to have some kind of physical problem. They started to do some remedies by themselves for the innate intellectual power. So in the ancient time, we used to say that when somebody has a stomach indigestion problem, they used to drink hot water, and that sounds very effective. Similarly, applying some kind of fermented wine, something like on the swelling, that kind of reducing the swelling, and found very effective. And also applying cold water or cold stone when they have a fever. So this kind of small knowledge they have developed, and that is passed on to one generation to the next. And this indigenous medicine already exists in Tibet from the very ancient civilization. So later, as the time passed, many scholars of Tibetan medicines visited the neighboring countries like India, Nepal, Mongolia, Persia, and China, and learned about those neighboring countries' system, and came back to Tibet. And the essence of all the medical texts that we call the Fourth Tantra or Gyushi, this picture is the ancient text, and it is in the book form these days, and we are based on this text. Even in today, when the medical student, we need to go through this text. And this text was edited or bring this version of Tibetan medical text by our father of Tibetan medicine we call Yuthok Yundan Gombo. And this system, we say that it's very unique, or normally we have many traditional medical systems in this world, but we say that Tibetan medicine has a different uniqueness we have, and that is the integration of Buddhist philosophy of ethics, karma, altruism, all these are integrated in the Tibetan medicine. Not only the Buddhist philosophy, but also the astrological aspect also integrated in Tibetan medicine. So when we do study, we need to go to the Buddhist philosophy a bit, and also we need to learn the astrological aspect, because all these are integrated in the not only in the diagnosis but also in the treatment. We also all this integrated. Because of this, this is the one part that we said that Tibetan medicine is the uniqueness of its integration with Buddhist philosophy and its integration with the astrological aspect. So in Tibetan medicine, when we talk about Tibetan medicine, like Ayurveda or any traditional medicine is talking about 5 elements. So similarly, the Tibetan medicine is the concept, the main concept of Tibetan medicine is based on the 5 elements, maybe everybody knows what is 5 elements. So based on these 5 elements, we say that everything that you find in this universe, now even a very small atom, it is made up of 5 elements. You say that you will never find a single object that is not made up of 5 elements. Because of this evolution of 5 elements within this small object may brings out different forms that you see in our world. So those who have believed in 5 elements, it's really very easy for me to convince that there is something 5 elements. But those who don't believe, that is also sometimes a little bit challenging to convince them. But whenever I have a talk on these 5 elements, I always have giving an example, like even if you want to plant a small flower, you need all these 5 elements. Otherwise, you cannot enjoy this beautiful flower. Like you need soil, you need water, and you need temperature of heat, and you need a air element to grow, move, and you need, of course, you need a space. If everything you have, if you cover that pot, then there is no space to grow that flower. So similarly, all these 5 elements is needed to form a single object, so including our human body. So our human body is also made up of 5 elements. And in the human body, we have 3 elements, like Ayurveda, Vayu, Pitta, Kapha, you are talking about Ayurveda. So similarly, in Tibetan medicines, we have a Lung, Tepa, Pagan. Lung is similar to the Vayu, Tepa is similar to the Pitta, and Kapha is similar to the Pagan. So these 3 energies in our body, which is also composed from 5 elements. So our body is functioning, our body is sustaining because of these 3 elements, which are just the manifestations of these 5 elements. We say that the Vayu or the lung energy, which is composed from the air element, and fire or the Chipa energy, which is composed from the fire element, or the Kapha or the Pagan is composed from the elements of water and earth element. So these 3 energies are manifestations of 5 elements, and with these 3 energies our body is functioning. And we should not misunderstand that these 3, when we talk about these 3 energy, it is not only a disease, it is necessary in our body to function. So without these 3 energy composed from the 5 elements, our body cannot exist. Our body cannot form in our mother womb. So from the very beginning, these 5 principal energies is functioning. As long as this 3 energy is functioning properly in our body, then we enjoy the very physical healthy. Obviously, here I've written that good health in Tibetan medicine means when there is balance of all 25 body compositions along with a happy mind, through proper diet, medicine, and lifestyle. These 25 body compositions, what I mean to say is, we have the 3 body principal energies. It has different classifications. That means there are 25 different kinds of body principal energy in our body, with 7 body constitutions and the 3 major body excretions. That means there is 25 body compositions in our body. When these 15 types of body principal energies are functioning in our body, because they have different locations in our body, different quantity, and different characteristic as well. They characteristic lung, tipa, pagan, or vayu, pitta, kapha, they have a different characteristic, and their characteristics are contradicting with each other. Because of their contradicting characteristic, our body is balancing. For example, if vayu, the lung, it has a very roughness in characteristic, and the kapha or the pagan have a smoothness in characteristic. So these roughness and smoothness characteristics, they are balancing in our body. So it shouldn't go beyond its limit. So similarly, all the characteristics of these 3 energies in our body are balancing each other to function our body properly. So when there is a proper function of these principal energies, then obviously there is a production of healthy body constitutions and the excretions. So at that time we say that we are healthy, physically. So in the Western medical system, when all these 25 body compositions in our point of view, then we say that they are coining that person is healthy. But in Tibetan medical system, when we talk about health, health doesn't mean only the mere absence of physical problem. The mentally, we are also considering, mentally healthy, physically healthy. Then we say that the individual is in ultimate good health. So this is just some basic concept of Tibetan medicine. And when these, obviously when these 25 body compositions disturbed, because of the certain conditional factors like improper diet, improper behavior, or also I believe that sometimes the environmental factors also disturbed that principal energies. And of course, sometimes if you believe that spirit or something like that is also increasing, taking influence on our body principal energies. And of course, there is mind, so that it's something a very, very big subject to explain about the mind. So if there is disturbance in mental stress or anxiety, then we say that somebody is not healthy or a sick person. So what is mental disorder in Tibetan medicine? When I have had this topic, it's really a very big challenging for me as well. Because this topic is a very big subject. It's something to do with somebody's emotional level, to explain about the mind, which we cannot see, which we cannot point out, So this is something like convincing others there is something like mind is there. But so what is mental disorder in Tibetan medicine is condition commonly termed as stress, anxiety, depression, and the symptoms of unpleasant changing individuals' behavior patterns due to the disturbed mind or consciousness, another very important component in our body to maintain ultimate good health. So when somebody has a stress or anxiety, it doesn't mean that one is in a mental disorder. Stress is always there in our day-to-day life, from the very opening eye morning till the night. There is certain level of stress of going to office job, stress of what to make breakfast or lunch or dinner, something small stress is always there. It sometimes is very necessary to move forward, to do our work on time. This is also very important and needed in our life. If you don't have stress, then maybe our life, we will not reach to the point where we want to. The anxiety is more severe than the stress. Anxiety, too much thinking. So if there is too much stress with anxiety continuously, then it may lead to the problem depression. Then depression is certain which reach to the little bit more higher level, which needs medication. So stress and anxiety can be easily controlled if they get some kind of if the problem is solved on time. But long time stress and anxiety may lead to the depression. Then obviously we need a medication. So all this depression, stress, anxiety is related to the mind. The mind or consciousness, one of the very important component in our body. According to Tibetan medicine, even during the conception in the mother's womb, first, mind or the consciousness is also one of the factor to conceive baby in mother's womb. On the Western point of view, they are not talking about the consciousness. They are talking about the sperm and the ovum, the healthy reproductive organs. Not mentioning about certain mind or the consciousness. But in Tibetan medicine, in our theory, it is strongly emphasized that mind or the consciousness is necessary to conceive a baby. So in our life, you find that a couple who have no any physical problem in the reproductive organs, all are very healthy, everything tests normal, still they couldn't conceive a baby. In the Western point, they don't have any reason why these two couple is not conceiving a baby. So according to Tibetan medicines, we believe that the consciousness, the connection between this consciousness that is generated from the previous life, that connection, the close connection between this consciousness and this couple is necessary to conceive. So according to Tibetan medicine, there may be some kind of spiritual practice to be performed, and after that, performing all the spiritual problem, then couple can conceive. And so we have such kind of history in our real life. So because of this consciousness, this consciousness also plays a very important during the conceptions, and this absence of this consciousness will hinders in conception. So this is what I like to speak. And actually, when we talk about mental problem, we need to know what is mind or consciousness. I consider the mind and the consciousness are the same. So when we talk about the mind or consciousness, we definitely need to touch the Buddhist philosophy. It's very much, without touching the Buddhist philosophy, we cannot explain what is mind. So because of that, Tibetan medical doctor need to also have a little bit knowledge about the Buddhist concept. So I personally would like to confess that I don't have so much deep knowledge of Buddhist philosophy in depth, which needs lots and lots of years study that I didn't do at the time. But on the basis as a Tibetan physicians, that much I could explain. The mind or consciousness, we say that it's invisible, we cannot see, we cannot touch. But when we talk about mind in Buddhist philosophy, they're explaining about the primary mind or the secondary mind. When you see the Buddhist philosophy or the Buddhist text, you will find that mind is something like clear light or very clear, very pure, something like, which is we call as a primary mind, because the mind itself is very pure, mind itself is very pure and unpolluted. But due to the ignorance, we say that due to the mental negative perception or things that polluted our primary mind, then they comes out the secondary mind, we say that. So our body is functioning, our mind is functioning under the control of the secondary mind. So this is the secondary mind, means the polluted mind. Also it depends where it individual to individual, the level of this secondary mind. The mind is basically this primary or secondary mind. Primary mind we also call as a Buddha nature mind. Because of this, we also say that every individual has a capability to get enlightenment in one life because of presence of this Buddha natured mind. But I think it's it's very difficult in this cyclic 21st century. It's quite difficult. But however, due to the negative emotions resulting secondary mind, which projects or experience varieties of outlooks and feelings, we all being in this cyclic world possess the secondary mind, which can be varied according to individuals' capability in thinking and actions. So everybody has this mind, the how or the mental ability, or how the mental is we are enjoying, how mental happiness we are enjoying. It's depend on the individual's capability to cope with. Even if somebody has a similar problem facing, but due to the individual's capability, two person having the same problem, but two person has a different expression or different symptoms. Somebody maybe doesn't affect anything, they can lead happy life, but somebody may go to depression. So it depends on the individual capability to cope with that situation. Tibetan medical approach on the physical, the psychology, the environmental, spiritual, all come into play in the etiology and the causes of disease, diagnosing, treatments. So the main thing about Tibetan medicine and the management of Tibetan medicine is to root out this problem. Why this person is depressed, or why this person is in stress. We need to root out this problem, so that we can manage this mental health problem. Otherwise, symptomatically, you may feel better, but in the long run, this problem cannot be solved. So in Tibetan medicine, or also in the Buddhist philosophy, we say that every disease in our human life, not only the mental problem, every disease, the root cause is ignorance. We say that the ignorance means that not knowing the true nature of reality that eventually brings self-centered attitude, that is called ego. As a result, our mind confused, and this ignorance leads to three mental negativities of desire, hatred, and obscurations concurrently give rise to various forms of imbalance in the body, which can be grouped under Lung, Tipa, and Pekin. The ignorance, it's really a big subject, A person like me cannot go in deep on this ignorance, but briefly, ignorance that since even all human beings born in this world itself is a world of suffering, we say that, cyclic world. And everybody who born in this world is because of this ignorance, otherwise we will be enlightened, we are no more human beings. But because of this ignorance, we born in this universe. Ignorance about not knowing the reality of life means not knowing about the just concentrating too much about the self-centered. Everybody is talking about my family, my friend, my institution, or something like so much self-centered that ego. It's always there, Nobody wants to look down, and everybody wants to on the top. So this kind of ego brings out these three mental negativities, or in Buddhist philosophy we call it three mental poison, because we call it poison because it gives us a negative impact. Negativities of desire, desire, hatred, and obscuration is almost like ignorance. So the main thing when we talk about these three mental poison, like desire, hatred, obscuration, this brings out these three principal energy. Like desire brings the Lung energy or the Vayu energy. Hatred, it brings out the fire energy or the Tipa energy or the Pitta. The obscuration brings out the Pekin or the Kapha energy. So when we talk about the mental health, when we touch about mental health, it's mostly connected with this particular energy, which is called this one, Lung, or the Vayu energy. It's very much connected with the mind. Uh, mm, Connected to the mind. So because of this concept of lung connection with the mind, so when we talk about the mind-body relations, everybody is talking about the mind-body relations. When we talk about the mind-body relation, it is touching on this Vayu energy, the physical body energy, and its connection with the mental. So when we talk about the mental disorder, it's directly connection with the lung energy. But not only the lung energy, there is also mental disorder that can be dominated by the Tipa energy or the Kapha energy, this Pitta energy, and also mental disorder, also connection with the Pagani energy or the Kapha energy. So on the basis of dominance of these three energy on the individual, those who have a mental problem exhibited different kind of symptoms. So during the diagnosis, physician need to diagnose the type of mental problem that person has. So, here, mental problem is directly related to the lung energy, particularly the life-sustaining lung. As I mentioned earlier, there is different kinds of classifications of lung energy. One of the very important lung energy that is called the life-sustaining lung. It is directly connected to the mental problem. When somebody has a mental disturbance or depression, then it directly affects this life-sustaining lung. So here in this picture, I just mentioned about the chakras, where our energy flows. In the right side, we call the Kyangma. Kyangma it's a channel of coal-dominated energy like Pagan and the lung. Vayu and the kapha energy flow. It mostly flows on the left side, and the fire energy or the pitta or the Tipa energy, that mostly flows on the right part of the body. So in the central it's called the Uma or the wind channel or the lung channel. We say that the Vayu channel. It goes in the middle of the body. It's in the center of the body. This is just shows its chakra, its flow. So normally on that basis, during our those persons who have a stroke person, due to the blood pressure, or you can also notice that somebody who affects on the right side will have a more severe problem because of its dominance of the fire energy or the pitta energy, which shows more infectious or more problematic it will give. Those who have affect the left side will shows a little bit less problem, or there's more chances of recovering. So this also connected with the flow of our energy in our body. Here, as I mentioned earlier, the mind is connected with the lung energy, which defines the mind-body relation. So it is a fact that we perceive the world through our senses, and as the senses is entirely perceive our mind or consciousness with the help of lung energy, which runs through the body channels, particularly the channels of nervous system. We commonly term it as a white channel in Tibetan medicine. So we say that mind cannot function in our body without the help of lung energy. So mind is running in our body with the help of this lung channel. So lung also cannot work properly, perceived, without this consciousness. So it gives example like those who have a lung without the mind, presence of mind. Presence of lung without mind, it means that it's something like a blind horse. Blind horse, he can move because of this lung energy or the Vayu energy, but he don't know where to go. He cannot perceive because of this absence of mind. So similarly, if there is a mind presence and you don't have lung energy, then it is similar as the man who cannot move leg or something like, So all both of needed to function. So the lung and the mind is interrelated with each other to function properly. So this is the shows how the mind is connection with the lung, and if the physical body is healthy, then the functions of the channel remains also optimal, and thus there is proper movement of lung within the channel. Thus the mind becomes more alert and stable, and fresh as well. So. And also, and contrary to this, if the mind is healthy, then the lung energy moves smoothly, within the body system and enhance the functions of channels, and in return boost the entire functions of our body as well. So, to be brief, the lung and the consciousness are interconnected with each other, have a direct relationship with the mind in physiological aspect. It says that the consciousness without, as I mentioned earlier, the consciousness without lung is like a leg with no movement, and where lung without consciousness like a blind horse. So these two are very much connected. So when we, as I mentioned that classifications of mental problem, according to the dominance of these three energy. If somebody, if somebody here who are psychologists or working with some mental problem, then you may notice different kinds of symptoms on the individual. So according to Tibetan medicines, we mentioned that those who have a mind mental problems, which has more dominated by this lung energy, you will see the person is very restless, shows often signs, unstable mental, like one of the most significant symptoms that you see on the persons who have mental problem dominated by this lung energy. They are very fluctuating moods, sometimes looking very happy, and all of a sudden very sad and crying without reason and laughing without reason, and very very alert and very cannot stay on one place, because of this mobility characteristic of this particular lung energy. So obviously those who have a mental problem dominated by this lung energy will have also have a very fluctuating appetite as well. And more problem is in sleeping, sleeping you cannot sleep. So on that basis, sorry, I would like to cover this as well. And those who have a Chipa dominated or the Pitta dominated mental problem, you will see that the person, when he is in stress, he will be very aggressive, very aggressive. He cannot, he will break everything that he see in his front, in his eyes. So you will see the different kind of mental problem. You have profuse swelling, yellow eyes, extreme thirst, and body temperature raise and headache. There's a symptom connection with the fire energy which show. So similarly, those who have a pagan dominated or the kapha dominated mental problem, you may come across somebody who have a mental problem, who always avoid to talk, and he always avoid the social life, always preferring to be alone, or cannot talk, he cannot talk, and he will always prefer in a very isolated symptoms, the swelling kind of faces, excessive mucus, sputum, all these loss of appetite, poor digestion, loss of memory, all these are symptoms that you will see in the persons who have a pagan energy dominated mental problem. So if you are professional, so according to Tibetans, when we manage this mental problem, we will see the causes of this problem, whether this mental problem is dominated by which energy, whether it's dominated by Vayu energy, lung energy, or Chiba energy, or pagan energy. So during the diagnosis, those who have a mental problem we always, during the diagnosis, we need to give time with the patient. This is really important, you know. Patient always comes to the doctor, we believe that with a hope, with a big expectation, you know. The patients coming to the doctors not because that doctor are looking very smart or beautiful or something like that. Everybody comes to the doctor with a lot of expectation, a lot of positive response from the doctor. So especially those who have a mental problem. I'm not objecting the Westerners or the psychologists, but we have energy dominated disturbance. So when we say that the psychological problem or psycho problem, he wanted to, if somebody recommending for this psycho hospital or what is the psychologist, mental hospital, this word itself is really a very big harsh, very harsh for the patient to accept that, or it may give more stress, you know. Now he may considering as the mad person or something like that. So we never coined a mental problem, you know. Also today I've written here mental disorder, but in practically we never say that somebody has a mind problem. We always say that your energy, whether lung energy or the tipper energy or pagan energy is disturbed. It needs to be managed by proper treatment. So, okay. Concept of mental health management development gives important dealing with the root cause of the problem rather giving symptomatic treatment. So obviously we need to give some symptoms to relieve medicines, but our main focus is to give on the root cause, why this person is mentally disturbed. You know, when we talk about the management in mental disorder in Tibetan medicine, we goes with the diet regimen. You know, in Tibetan medicine, the diet, behavior, medication, therapies, all mentions in a very systematic way. It has a reason to write in this pattern because on the basis of the severity of the problem, doctor need to prescribe whether this diet regimen or lifestyle regimen, if the person is a not so intense problem, that only the changing in the behavior and the lifestyle can manage this mental problem by, for it's especially, as I mentioned earlier, especially the mental problems is very much connected with the lung energy, the vayu energy. The most important we need to focus is on the management of this lung energy, you know. Physically, as I'm talking about, you know, the lung energy normally has very roughness in character, coolness, and should not be elevated further. It needs to bring down. So on that basis, the diet also we hear in this picture, lung or the vayu energy problem. We mostly recommended diet which is warm and the nutritious, and the pitta or the tippa energy dominated. We normally, because of its hotness in characteristic, mostly we recommended cool potency diets. Similarly, the pagan also the vayu or kapha energy, which is water and earth element dominance, mostly the cool energy. We recommended the hot and warm potency diet. So on the basis of this characteristic or the balancing of this energy, we recommended diet. And diet is the coolness and the warmness of diet is based on the taste of the diet, you know. So different taste has a different potency. And also the medications we have in the form of pills, powder, and the decoctions. So as I mentioned, medications also based on this disturbance energy. So finally, when the diet behavior, then as I mentioned, it's mostly connected with the vayu energy. We have a different kind of therapies. Like this in the point, we shows the therapies which applies from the external body of the patients. We have points which connect with a particular channel of longitudinal Perkins. On that basis, we apply like masturbation, we apply like hot compress, and also we do some kind of massage. So one of the important things to deal with a mental problem is to counseling. Counseling means to take time with the patient. This is really, really important. As my personal experience as a patient to a Western doctor, I always feel that I need some explanation from the doctor. What happened to me and what problem doesn't explain much. That gives a lot of dissatisfaction with the doctor. This is my personal experience. I have been to bad conditions with the doctors. At that time, I really feel, I need some time with that doctor. How I wish he could explain me a little bit more detail. This is my experience, and similarly, every patient needs more time with the doctor. This is the very, very important. Those who are psychologists, especially, dealing with a mental problem. The patients comes, they cannot explore everything unless you create some kind of environment, connected environment. Patient cannot express everything. They will hold on because what the doctor may say or something like this. This is the very, as a physician, as a clinical doctor in the various clinics, I feel that patient, we need to create some kind of connection between the doctor and the patient relationship is really important. If there is some very pleasant environment or a connection, then patient will tell you everything. You don't need to ask everything. He will tell you everything. He will burst everything. Then you will able to know what the problem really he has. What is the root cause of his problem? So only then you can able to give a very, very effective treatments. Otherwise, if somebody mind problem will come like I have no sleep, I don't have appetite, I have pain here and here, something like this, and if doctor gives a prescription on that basis, this is something a very asymptomatic treatment. He may get relief for time being, but he cannot be cured. This is even those who have mental problem, he needs some kind of pampered touch by the doctor. This is also very important. I have own experience when I'm in clinic. That Punjabi lady who is very much spiritual kind of lady. Punjabi, they have varieties of Punjabi. I don't know. She is really a high level of Punjabi. I don't know. They have lady who have. I don't know what is that. She's very spiritual lady. But some kind of the other daughter-in-law or something like they are modern. They cannot practice this kind of spiritual practice. So she get depressed, and she comes very oftenly. One time she come and she crying a lot. Like a small kids. Crying. But I know about her problem. She already had contact with me before, and I know about her root cause. But at that moment, she is in so much elevated low energy. We said the Vayu energy. She cannot control, and she's crying and doesn't have any kind of sense. And at that time, I laid her down and touched something like the points we have, as I shown before, like doing massages. And at that time, we need to touch the feet of the patient. So after time being, she was calmed down and she was a little bit fresh and alert, and she said that, what have you done to me? So I just I've done this and so, and I saw pampering, touch her feet and everything, and she was so amazed that I have never seen doctor who touched my feet. So she was touched and she was laughing, and so when she goes with very perfect and a laughing smile in her face. So this is the main thing. In dealing with the mental problem, we need to give a time with the patient. We need to understand that patient and need to root out the problem. Okay. So counseling during the actions of the body, mind, speech, the actions, speech plays a very important role, and one need to understand to purify the inner enemy, the selfishness. As long as you have selfishness, I think you cannot be parted from this mental problem. As long as if you able to spare a little bit far away from this selfishness or ego or the I concept, then you will really understand what the life is. And understand the value of precious human life. This is also very important during the counseling, because it is really hard to be born as a human, So we say that human is the most precious species as compared to the other living beings, So these also have a very limited, a maximum of 100, even not 100, these days in around 70s or 80s. So within this very short period, if you need to convince the patient that within this short period of life, if you spare your time and spend your time in a very equated manner or selfishness and suffering with the mental, then this is also very concern. We need to give advice on the patients. And concept of karma and imprints. And during the counseling with the patients, convincing about this karmic action is very important. Indians, most of the Indians believe in karma. Next life, previous life, you believe. So even the Tibetans and most Buddhists believe this. So as long as you believe this karmic impact or imprint, it's really, really helpful in dealing with managing the patients, because whatever you suffer in this world, suffering may come to your life in any form, but this is due to sometimes there's another important reason for this, because of your previous life impact. In the early life, you have committed some kind of bad things that you are purifying. You have got the opportunity to purify that bad imprint in this life. This is also fortunate. Otherwise, you have to carry these bad imprints to the next life as well, as long as you are born again and again. So this concept of explaining about or understanding if you have some kind of mental problem here can also understand. If you focus on this and understand about this, then you will definitely feel much relief. So one of the most fascinating or very good example about the mental happiness is of late Dr. Tenzin Chodak, So in the Harvard Medical Journal includes one article about Dr. Tenzin Chodak, and they have written that for 17 of the 21 years he remained in prison, he was beaten and tortured daily, physically and psychologically, and his life was continuously threatened, treated very badly. So astonishing, he emerged from this horror virtually free from sign of post-traumatic stress. This major physical problem, then it affects your mind. You stress, you worry, and obviously it affects your mind. But more importantly, if you have a mental happiness, mental relief, that even if you have a problem in your physical, you don't realize much. You don't realize. This is you can even feel in your life the small problem like a kind of pain over here. If you have stress too much, you feel more pain. If you neglect and if you're enjoying something, a very good movie, or you will forget about this pain. So this really impacts that the mind is more important than the physical level. So in one of the great master of Buddhist philosophy, Shantideva, said that if there is solution, why there is to be worried? If there is no solution, what is the use of worrying? So this word is really a very good thing. Whenever I have talk, I never miss this line. So this is really a very advice for the victim of the mental problem and for the psychologists who are dealing with this kind of problem. So if there is a solution, you can try to solve that problem. There is no need to be stressed. If there is no solution, then why we need to be worried? For example, we have come across many patients who are so much in depression after losing their parents. So for this kind of things, we cannot solve the problem. We cannot bring the mother or the father, that father or mother, bring back. There is no solution. What to do? So instead of that, which has no solution, we need to change the attitude. Instead of this, we need to do something good things. We need to follow the good advices that the parents have given to him. This is the only solution. So this is really a very good advice for the patient, and yeah. Another very important thing, His Holiness said that if you have fear of some pain or suffering, you should examine whether there is anything you can do about it. If you can, there is no need to worry. And if you cannot do anything, then there is also no need to worry. So this is the very important from His Holiness. And this is a message that you can take home. This chart I found in the internet. This is really a very good thing that the thought, your thought will result your feeling, emotions. And this emotion will bring into actions, behavior. And this action will bring into consequences. So you can see whether these consequences of your thought is negative or positive. If it's positive, go on with it. If it's negative, you need to change the thought. This is the message I can take home. So I would like to conclude here. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for Kabila was there for so much.
Marvelous talk. But before I really take away even an inch of the teaching, the analysis and the perceptions that she has presented before you in a highly systematic fashion, I merely want to repeat or reiterate why we are meeting here today in terms of this life which was subject to what one may call physical torture for decades, but this human entity, through the decades that he went through, both in the process of those tortures as also at what he arrived at and then emanated to the world, brings home to us the fundamentals of all this talk of mind, consciousness and body relationship. These are interpenetrative categories of our understanding in the critical discourse. but in terms of the worldview that she presented before you, a worldview which has been presented both in context and in out of context through the words and the presence, the sheer presence of His Holiness Dalai Lama. I think no words are necessary. No words are necessary because it is the presence and it is not even His own words or through His words. And what we call human embodiment, that human embodiment is only a signifier of the relationship of all that was spoken here, of the mind, body and consciousness relationships. And from this, I merely want to contextualize this, especially since the organizers of another series of lectures here on Buddhist philosophy and other philosophies have been held in the very premises of the ISC. It is to underline that there are philosophic systems and worldviews that cut across the intellectual debates of the differences and point at only one thing in that philosophic system or in these philosophic systems, which we may call the other philosophic systems, counterpoised from philosophic systems which came from either the evolutionists or later the Darwinists. And there she began with the 5 elements. Will you tell me, even if in the Chinese system alone, there are only 4 elements, and I could give you a little discourse on that separately, and why the Chinese think of 4. But in none of these other systems that you have spoken about, which you may call the Buddhist, which you may call the Sankhya system, which you may call all these systems, the Panchamahabhut is primary. The Panchamahabhut is primary and the Triguna is primary. They cut across all philosophic systems and they interpenetrate into all medical systems which emerge out of these philosophic systems, or the medical systems give rise to the philosophic systems. The relationship between the medical systems and the philosophic systems has to be very, not that one doesn't know the relationship of the whole theory of humors and medicine and aesthetics in the Aristotelian. But I think that the fundamental thing that one has to take home from this lovely presentation so clearly and successfully presented here is that the basis in terms of a worldview which is looking at the entire universe from the point of view of the Panchamahabhut and the Triguna. And from that emerges an entire, may I say, a system, a super system, and many. This is not the occasion, even from my ignorant stance, to speak about it. Furthermore, then, logically out of that emerges the mind-body relationship and what exactly is the mind. She elaborated on this, and yet this has remained an enigma. And on that, the location of the mind in the body is the $1 million or $1 billion question. This is the question which has engaged humankind and philosophic systems. It has engaged the entire lot in the most advanced medical systems, and ranging from a PM tendon in this part of the world to the Harvard School medical people, and to all the conferences that have been held under the aegis and the umbrella of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. We have not yet got to this identification of where the mind is. Does it have a location? Well, that is another, we'll have another discussion on the text that talks about the heart and the, so that is, because in terms, I'm not going into this, the third level of her presentation on which I know nothing, because I am a very imbalanced person. And so she's talked about how she's going to put you all into beautiful sleep and drink, whether by massaging your feet or massaging your heart or telling you lovely stories in terms of whether it is your chi or whether it is your three humors. Main thing is take charge of yourself and call yourself, what are you? So ask yourself the question, who am I? And then if you know that you're not the I, then life is all right. That's the sum total of it. Thank you very much.
Yes, well, thank you, Dr. Tenayula, and thank you, Kapila-ji. Now I think we've overstepped our time a little bit. May I request the director of Menzikang to present mementos to the panelists?
There's no panelist.
Oh, I'm sorry, well, yes, to both of you, to both of you.
अंग्रेजी जबान बड़ी अच्छी जबान होती है What about you?
Thank you very much for coming, everybody.
I'm talking about the cold and hot air.
Can we have that mic on, please?
Hello, yeah. I mentioned about the hot and the cold. I'm talking about the potency of the food. It's based on the taste of the food. You know, as I mentioned, everything is made of 5 elements. So, for example, like potato, even if you eat it very hot, but it is cold in potency because it is formed by an element, more dominant element of the water or the earth element. You know, element, vayu, air element, fire element, and earth element, or the 5 elements. So, for example, potato have a more dominated element of the water and the earth element, which are underground, like food, which are more dominated by these energies. That means they have a cool potency. So even if you take it hot, it is cooling potency. So this is what I mean to talk. We are not talking about the temperature of the
No, I'm
diet.
saying the potential to heat or cool your body.
Okay, potato, for example, potato is cool, cooling potency. Those who have a problem, for example, like kidney problem, kidney, we don't normally say this, it's even the organs have a different, uh, like, like potency, Kidney is more element of water element organ. So it is mostly on the cool organ. So if you have a kidney problem, which are dominated by of course there is sometimes a kidney infections, there are some kind of exception, but normally those who have a cold kidney problem, if you take the potato, that food has a cold potency, that means it will deteriorate your heat of the kidney. You need more heat diet, like more potency diet. If you're taking like a meat, for example, like chicken, which is more warm and hot potency, if you're taking that, it may balance the cool energy in your body. So cool and hot, I'm talking about on the basis of the potency. Is it okay?
Yes.
I think she wanted to know what foods have more potency and what have cold potency. No, it's okay, we can go on to another question.
Renuka, please.
I was wondering, how will you distinguish between mild mental illness and severe mental illness? Like in the Western medicine, we have a difference between neurosis and psychosis.
Neurosis and psychosis.
So in Tibetan Buddhism or in Tibetan medicine, do you have a distinction between a mild form and a severe form of mental illness?
So it depends on the symptoms.
Yeah.
In the symptoms,
So,
according, during the diagnosis, not only the symptoms, we diagnose on the basis of the pulse nature, on the basis of the urine analysis, and by questioning. So through these systematic diagnosis, we can analyze what level of that mental problem he has.
Yes, please.
Is there any disease which is incurable with Tibetan science? Like in allopathy, I mean, they say that MS or schizophrenia is incurable, that's degenerative disorder. So is there anything which is incurable?
When you talk about incurable, like schizophrenia or what is it?
Schizophrenia.
Schizophrenia.
Yeah.
We cannot say that we can cure the individual, and we cannot also say that we can cure the person, because it depends on how the responses from the individual victim also very depends. So individual cooperation during the mental treatment, not only doctor cannot do. The response or the cooperation from the patient is also very, very important. So if this kind of cooperation is very positive, then I could say that it can be cured.
Yes.
Doctor, I want to know one thing. Suppose if a patient is having such sort of symptom, he doesn't know, she doesn't know that what is hot diet or what is cold diet. If some sort of these small literatures are made available to in your institutions, then I think that can help, because you can detect what is the need of a person in that particular situation. So of all these things, like these three things which you have shown us on the screen, if they are made available in all your these centers, then one can read and with the help of the guide, I think it will be something very helpful to.
we have one book published by our department on, especially on the diet, especially focused on the vegetables. So we have one book available. You can, maybe it's outside. So it has mentioned the potency, effectiveness, and how to take it. So this may also have, but we don't have yet any book or specifically on all the diets, but more on the vegetable. We already have one book.
It's just a suggestion, if that can be made available, I think it will help to the human.
Definitely.
Right. Because I am one of the lucky persons who had met Dr. Chodak. He came to Delhi to attend see my elder brother. He was suffering from cancer in 97. So he was called by Sir Gangaram Hospital's one of the renowned Dr. S. Nandi. He called him from Dharamshala. And I met Dr. Chodak at that time.
Oh, okay, so we may try it too.
Okay.
There's a question here.
Excuse me, you see, it's an alternative type of medicine.
Which one?
Any medicine other than
Okay.
allopathy, we call them alternative medicines.
Mhm.
Now, there would be situations where you would not be able to manage extremely violent or uncontrollable patients or very grossly suicidal. May not be able to. Would you prefer to refer them to allopathic people?
Definitely, in our practice as a clinician, we always considering the cooperation between the Western and the traditional is very needed. We cannot separate the Western system or the traditional system because the ultimate goal of the traditional or the Western doctors is same to cure that person. So if we come across certain diseases, not only matter, certain kinds of very serious disease which needs an immediate measure, we are always referring this to our Western
Because
doctors.
there are many people in India who are ignorant and they exploited by many centers which do not believe in treating them
Traditional
in the right
medicine.
way. Right, traditional medicine, we are not disputing it. But there are many emergencies, many conditions which require immediate
Definitely.
You have no such mental block.
No, not at all. In Dharamsala we have a Western hospital, and we have a very close connection. They are referring some kind of problems, patients who need the Tibetan medicine, this and down, and we also.
I mean the psychotic disorders, the severe depressive disorders, because they have been mishaps.
Yeah, of course, sometimes severe disease which needs an immediate relief to bring down that lactic visa. In Western days, talking about the electric flow or something like to deactivate immediate relief. Definitely, we are recommending. We are not obstructing or holding the patient because our ambition is to have that individual.
Can we have the last question? Yeah.
One of my friend has depression. So when she goes to a doctor, she becomes
Can you
alright.
take the mic, please?
One of my friends has depression. So when she goes for treatment, she takes the medicine, she becomes alright. Then after some time, then again she goes into depression. Why is she not getting treated? Is it she doesn't want to improve, or this is her past karma that again she's going to depression? I want her to get out of it permanently.
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, the root cause, why that your friend is in depression, how it started, how her mental problem started and what causes this you need to trace out, Otherwise you cannot be cured. The Western medicines that she may be taking may relieve her temporary symptoms. But the main thing is she need to change her attitude, what the main problem she has. You need to trace out that. So only then you can help her. Otherwise, I think it will be a temporary relief.
All right, make that the last, okay.
If an individual is suffering from two contradictory doshas, like Vata and Pitta, then how will you decide about the diet and the medicine? Because both the diets are contradictory. In the Pitta you have to give cool diets, and then Vata you have to give hot diets. So if the person is suffering from both the problems, he has body ache also, he has lot of heat, lot of sweating, and the liver problem. So how will you decide the diet?
Of
as
course,
well as the
okay.
medicine?
Definitely when we come across patient, it's very difficult to come across patients with a single disbalance energy problem. They always have a combination. So we need to see which one is more dominant. So first, which one is more dominant, we need to focus. Then obviously, generally we are giving the medication 3 times a day. So on that basis, we need to balance the medicine. So first, we need to focus on the dominance, which element is more dominantly disturbed.
So then how will you decide the diet? First you will give the diet.
Diet also, they have a very balanced diet, not so cold, not so hot. So on that basis, we are recommending.
And then you will check which doshas are wrong. And then you will
Yeah, definitely.
May I now request Dr. Sonam, I'm sorry, because we've already half an hour past that time. We did, but anyway, yes, okay.
Do you attribute addiction to mental disorder? Like if a person has got alcoholism or some kind of drug addiction, is that related to mental disorder? Or is that, can it be cured?
You mean the alcoholic?
Yeah, anyone who's got some sort of addiction,
Addiction.
can that be categorized as a mental disorder or vice versa? Like, can it be treated?
I cannot say that alcoholic can be a mental problem or something like that. It's the habitual.
Because in allopathy, I think we categorize it as a sickness. Alcoholism is categorized.
Yeah, if somebody cannot control or something like it's depend. As I mentioned earlier, everything is depend on the mental attitude. Some individuals, those who are mental problem, they goes direct to the alcohol. So this can be categorized, or sometimes it's depend on the individual bad habits.
It's curable, that's what you say.
Of course, the same is depend on that individual. The main important thing is the doctor need to make a very proper counseling. So explaining the negativities of that habits. So it is very important, doctor, to. It's really challenging for the psychologist to convince that individual. So if you're able to convince that individual, then it can be curable. Otherwise, it's difficult.
Okay, may I request Dr. Sonam one more to give a vote of thanks?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of India International Center IIC and Mensi Kang Tibetan Medical and Astro Institute of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our chief guest, Dr. Kapila Ji, for taking out time for her busy schedule and gracing our evening tonight. I would also like to thank Professor M.G.K. Menon, Director of IIC, and Madam Premola Bose, Chief Program Director of IIC, for kindly facilitating this wonderful venue without which this evening wouldn't have been possible. I also wish to express my deep thanks to our esteemed Director, Rashid Sering Puri, for being with us tonight. I would also like to extend my thanks to Dr. Jamyang Tolma for her wonderful talk and sharing us her knowledge and enlightening us on the topic Tibetan medical approach to mental health and the connection and relevance with the Tibetan Buddhism. Both this system stress the importance of finding the root causes of problems and thereby applying the antidote to eliminate the sufferings. Whether it's dealing with 3 afflictive or negative emotions in Buddhism or dealing with the 3 doshas in Tibetan medical system. I would like to thank you all for joining us and being such a wonderful audience this event. I thank you all for your participation and enthusiasm, and I hope that such events take place more often in future, and I, on behalf of Mansi Kang, look forward to seeing you all again. Lastly, I would like to thank our dedicated staff members of Mansi Kang clinics in Delhi and Mansi Kang Export and Import Division Kalkaji, New Delhi, for providing us with the logistic support. Once again, thank you all for being with us this evening. It's been a great pleasure. Good night. Rashid.
Of course, we knew you'd be here. We knew you'd be here.
Because I am concerned with this. I am taking this
Yes.
medicine for
Doctor, I'm sorry we got a little long.
सर ये थोड़ा सा चेयर और पीछे कर दीजिए थोड़ा सा ओके ओके थैंक यू सर प्लीज सर सब देखिए अपने साइड में यस
जरा मंजूरी ना
Yes, everybody.
다른 더 오구만.
Ready? Ready, smile. Oh, that wonderful.